So we don't need to talk about where I saw this because I don't know. We don't need to like dump attention on people with bad takes. But I recently saw a person talking about how environmentalists were hypocritical because pipelines, oil and gas pipelines, are actually good for the environment. And if you look at this through a very narrow lens, there's like a truth here, which is that moving oil through a pipeline is far more efficient than moving it on a train, which is how you would typically otherwise be moving that oil around. But there is a thing where right now, oil is pumped out of the ground, put into trains, and then the trains drive to the refineries. And on the way to the refinery, that produces a ton of carbon emissions. So it would be way more efficient per unit of oil delivered if we just put it in a pipeline. So why are these environmentalist hypocrites blocking pipelines? About 20% of the total like CO2 that fuel, that like gasoline is responsible for, is emitted before it gets burned. So in the process of distributing it to like from the refineries to the gas stations, in the process of refining it, which produces carbon dioxide, in the process of producing it, getting it out of the ground, and in the process of getting it to the refineries. So getting it to the refinery more efficiently would be better for the environment, right? So why don't we like pipelines if they're better for the environment, if they lower the carbon footprint of gasoline? And the answer is pretty clear. That infrastructure pays for itself on the scale of decades. And so if you are building new pipelines, what you are saying is we're going to be using this pipeline for decades. And we can't be doing that. We cannot be using a pipeline that we build today, 20 years from now, because 20 years from now, we cannot be burning gasoline anymore. We can't be doing it for our lungs. We can't be doing it for our climate. We can't be doing it for our wallets. I think that there is some legitimacy to separating the sort of climate movement, whatever that is, from the problem of climate change and how we are going to solve it. I think there is a certain amount of the climate movement that encourages hopelessness, that is very doomer, that kind of pitches things in binaries that I think ultimately end up harming our progress. So if you're constantly telling people that like this is the tipping point and after this tipping point then there's nothing we can do, then that's like you're breaking the process. Because of course, when we hit the tipping point and the world still exists and you're still telling people that we still have to fight, should I be hopeless? Should I not believe you anymore? What's the truth here? And there is some tension between like portraying the complex reality of energy transition and motivating people to climate action or to just care about this topic. And I'm not entirely sure how to balance those things. And I don't think that like anybody decides how to balance them. I think that this is largely out of people's control. It's a bunch of individuals acting in their own ways, how like in the ways that they feel best to act in and that they like the most. There are many, many times when building a pipeline means now you can drill for oil that you previously couldn't drill for. So it has become, because of the pipeline, not just economically available oil, it has become economically imperative oil. We have to drill it to pay for the loan that we took out to build the pipeline. And part of me like, okay, if I think that people can be swayed by like a little stupid argument like that to be like, I guess climate change isn't real, then, but I kind of think that we have to do everything we can to reach everyone we can. And so if there is this little meme going around that's like, oh, I don't believe it. It turns out that the climate activists actually made it worse. No, they made it better. They made it better because that oil that previously would have got pumped out of the ground because it suddenly would have been more economically efficient and helped pay for this pipeline, that stayed in the ground. That stayed in the ground. It didn't get shipped more inefficiently. It never got taken out of the ground in the first place. That's why we can't build new pipelines. That's why pipelines are over. And every time anyone wants to build a new pipeline, I am opposed to it. Because if you can't make money putting it on a train or a truck or whatever, then that oil is going to stay in the ground. And that percentage of its carbon impact that would be negated by putting it in a pipeline rather than a train is peanuts compared to just leaving it in the ground. We have alternatives now. And 20 years from now, there are going to be a lot of other options. And I'm confident that all of them are going to be cheaper than gasoline, which is not getting easier to get. So we need to make this transition. And anything that smooths our path in making it is good. And anything that keeps oil in the ground and not burned and sitting above us in our atmosphere is good. Pipelines are bad for the environment. Sometimes they break and they goop sludge all over the ground. Sometimes that sludge should stay in the ground. And indeed it is. And indeed we are all benefiting from it not being out of the ground, because once it's out, it will get burnt. This video is brought to you by the podcast Shift Key. It's not really. They didn't pay me, but it should be. And you should listen to Shift Key. It's a podcast that isn't just about climate activism. It's a podcast about climate solutions. It's a podcast about what's called the energy transition. The thing that we have to do where we will still have energy that we produce so that we can have the things that we currently enjoy as part of our lifestyle. And indeed, more people who currently don't have access to those things, who I would not deny the luxuries that I enjoy, can also have those things, but without destroying the stability of the planet's climate. Now, I understand that I have a master's degree in environmental studies, so it's going to be easier for me to understand this. Look, just listen to it with your phone out and occasionally Google it when they're talking about terms you don't understand. What's the interconnection queue? Don't worry. You'll just search interconnection queue and you'll find out about how the biggest thing standing in the way of the energy transition in America right now might be the interconnection queue. It's basically the line that new energy projects have to wait in before they get hooked up to the grid. There's a bunch of process so that you make sure you don't mess up the grid when you hook a new project into it. But that process was designed for when we built like one giant new power plant every couple of years rather than lots of little wind farms and solar farms all the time. And that's the kind of thing that you can learn about. And also you can learn about the people who are trying to solve that problem and all the ways they're trying to solve it in a way that hopefully will give you some hope about the future. You can check it out. It's called Shift Key. It's Robinson Meyer and Jesse Jenkins, and it's great. Okay.